Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Khatamin nabiyyin Abil Qasim Muhammad. وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا. صلوات بيجي محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I recited the following verses from Surah Naba'a, number 20, 21, 22, 23. And if you remember the discussion that we concluded last time, I had recited this ayat, Yawma yunfakhu fis surah fata'tuna afwaja, but I did not get to the tafsir of this ayah. In fact, we went in some tangents and the discussion concluded with the discussion of Hajj and the importance of Hajj and whatnot. But inshallah, I plan on sticking to the topic and continuing with these ayat. That Allah says, the day the trumpet will be blown and you will come in groups. And then the sky will be opened and become gates, and the mountains will be set moving and become a mirage. First, the word that is being used over here is afwaj. Those who know Urdu, or Persian for that matter, the word fawj and afwaj is, commonly used. It refers toward the army, armed personnel. And in Arabic, the word fawj or afwaj refers to any unified group. Any group which is unified, which is, in sync. It's not like, like a jamaat of people just protesting somewhere, or, those who are, systematically moving together in sync, how the army and the military, they have their parades and how they're always in sync. That's what the word fawj or afwaj refers to. Those who are unified, synchronized, orderly, and systematic. And therefore, not just any group of people would be referred to as fawj. But this is definitely when they are raised back in Qayamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about how everyone will come together. And because it was Yawmul Fasl, it was Yawmul Jam' as well, the day when everybody will be gathered together. So this is definitely talking about the scene from Qayamah when everybody will be gathered and they will be brought in as afwaj, as fawj, all aligned, in sync that they are going toward and marching toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you also recite in Surah Yasin, وَنُفِخَ فِي السُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ, that they will be driven out of their grave into the presence of their Lord. So all of them, in sync, in congregation, in other words, in orderly fashion, they will come. One of the companions of the Holy Prophet by the name Sa'ad ibn Jabal, he asked him about this verse. That, O Rasulullah, what do you say about this ayat? Rasulullah, the riwayat says that Rasulullah, when he heard, he said, it's a very good question, and he shed a tear out of agony and out of pain. And then he said, قال يهشر عشرة أصناف من أمتي أشتاتا قد ميزهم الله تعالى من المسلمين وبدل صورهم. That 10 groups of people from my ummah will be raised on that day, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will obviously distinguish between them and from the Muslimin, and baddala surahum, and their faces will be changed because they'll convert into faces of something else. And that is due to their amal, and that is due to their actions. So another riwayat, that because those who have same beliefs and same actions, they will be raised together. It's very difficult for us to fathom this. let's say, just for the argument's sake, that everybody in this room, and they have different qualities, different attributes. Now, one thing that unites us all is that we're all Muslim, and that we are all believers of Ahlul Bayt, for example. That's something which unites us. But there are ways that we can be separated. For example, some of us, and I only mention the good ones, and I won't mention, something negative, that some of us are, very punctual when it comes to our salat, for example. So that group will be separated from us. So start thinking like, how many of us will be taken apart because we are punctual when it comes to our salat. Some of us, are good at something else, for example. When it comes to generosity, we are very open-hearted, for example. So that group will be separate. So that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning how different groups will be separated because of this fact that, they will be brought back. So Sa'ad ibn Jabal asked this question, and Prophet said, no, there will be 10 groups of people that will be raised on the Day of Judgment from my ummah, and their faces will be changed because of their amal and because of their actions. And as I said, Prophet, out of pain, shed a tear or two when he was explaining this. He said, who are these 10 people that will emerge on Qayamat? And each group with a specific face. Number one, the tattlers, those who gossiped. Those who were amongst the gossipers in my ummah, they will be raised separately. So if there is a group amongst us, na'udhu who gossips, then that group will be raised separately, according to this riwayat of Rasulullah. And in the face of monkey. So their faces will be converted into qirada, as the riwayat says, into the faces of monkey. Consumers of haram, those, amongst the people of the ummah of Rasulullah, those who consumed haram, knowingly or even, in some riwayat, unknowingly, they will be raised and their faces will be changed to the faces of pigs. Number 3, it said those who used interest and riba, they will be raised reversed, upside down, back up and then face down in the form that they'll be upside down. So you can tell just by looking at, okay, this is why they're raised in this way. They're changed to monkeys because of this reason. They're changed to, for example, pigs because of this reason. They're upside down, it's because of this reason. Those who were oppressive judges and rulers and leaders, they will be raised blind. Those who were self-centered and selfish as deaf and dumb. Scholars who didn't act on their own knowledge will emerge chewing on their own tongues. So they'll be chewing on their own tongues. Because why? Because they spoke from this tongue. They addressed people. They, gave them advice, but they did not act upon those advices themselves. So they'll be chewing on their own tongues. Annoying neighbor without hands and feet. So those who were annoying and they were your neighbors and they made your life hell, and they will be raised on the Day of Judgment without their hands and without their feet. And that is the compensation that they pay. Slanderers who slander others, who have dirt on others, for example, hanging on the fire. So they'll be brought up as if they are hanging on the fire. Victim of their desires, those who just cannot control their lust and their desires, as the word hawasbaz is used, with a very, very bad smell, something that you can't even, stick around for. They will be raised in that form where you could just want to run away from that. Victim of false pride, wearing a dress sticking to their bodies, because they used to take pride in what they used to wear. Now their libas will be sticking to their body, and you could tell, when this libas is sticking, what it is sticking with, the fluid that is emerging from their bodies. So Rasulullah mentioned that these are the 10 groups of people from my ummah. That means what? These were Muslims. They're not kuffar, they're not disbelievers, they're not unbelievers. No, these were Muslims from my ummah, and because of these things that they used to do, they will be raised on the Day of Judgment in this way. وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا, and the sky will be opened and become gates. So then the sky will open up, and it's referring toward that sky which is the entrance to the heavens or the entrance to the mahshar. And so it's, after they're being raised, that'll open up and they will enter from it. There are 2 skies, one mentioned in the earlier ayah, and build above you 7 mighty heavens. that is something which will perish, which is something which will, alongside with everything that is in this universe, will perish. But here, futahat as-sama, the sky above this material sky of ours. That, this is the material sky that you see, for example. Above this material sky is that sky which will open up, which will be the entrance to Mahshar and Qayamah. وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. And the mountains will be set moving and become a mirage. The same mountains which were fixed on earth, like nails hammered into a wall, alluded in the previous ayah. If you remember, right? What was the ayah said? I was saying that, we keep this earth from violently shaking because of these mountains. Because these mountains are like, they're pierced into the ground in depth, like a nail that you put a few pieces of wood together and then you nail them together, right? You hammer them together. Similarly, because of these different pellets of the earth, these different layers of the earth, they can shake. And when they shake, it'll bring an earthquake. These mountains, the mountainous areas, rarely have any earthquakes. And because of this reason, that the mountains keep them from violently shaking. So that mountain, which was so firm in the ground that it was keeping the earth from shaking, what's happening to itself now? And the mountains will be set moving and become a mirage. That now they will move from their place, and insan will think as if they never existed. So you look at this place, sort of like, for example, 10 years ago when 15 years ago when you saw this land, this building didn't exist. And then, let's say you came back after 15 years from somewhere, from hibernation, you just woke up or something, or you just came back from another place, you moved to another state, and then you just came back, for example. You moved back to Pakistan and you came back, and then now you see this place built over here. Similarly, these people, they'll be like, oh, there used to be mountains over here. What happened? Those mountains are gone. Sort of like a mirage that they never really existed. You just see it on the horizon, and when you get closer to it, it is non-existent. So which you see on the road and on the desert. So like these Himalayas and all these big mountain range, they'll actually move from their places and they will not be around. In fact, if you remember, when the Najran came, and the Christians of Najran, they came to do this mubahala, or this, they came for this mubahala with Rasulullah and with his immediate family, as the ayat of Surah Al-Imran talks about it. فَقَالُوا تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ نِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ ثُمَّ نَبْتَهِلْ فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That whole event which took place when Asqaf Azam, the grand leader of the Christians, when he saw Rasulullah along with his daughter and Amir al-Mu'mineen and Hassan and Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, he right away said to them, don't indulge into any sort of argument with them. In fact, accept what they want to offer to you. If you go ahead and do debate with them, and these were his words that Tafsir Baydawi narrates, that Wallahi la ara wujuhan, I see faces that if they were to point toward the mountains, they will move from its place. Because they have the ability that I see faces, so that if they were to look at this world, they can cause it to change, because they have power over the takwiniyat of this world. So those were his words. Baydawi uses them from Asqaf Azam, who just by looking at Ahlul Bayt is saying that if they were to order the mountains, definitely and yazila, they will move from its place. So that is sort of like what is being explained over here, that Qayamat will take place. Mountains which were there, they will no longer be existing over there. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. But the concept that is being mentioned, the saraba, mountains will be set moving like a mirage. What is that concept of mirage? It says actually all forms of enjoyment in this worldly life are like fleeting mirage. Any type of enjoyment that you find in this world, their outward appearance entices you, but they are hollow and devoid of reality. So that's what the basic message is from these huge mountains, which then, will be gone from its place, as if they never really existed, sort of like a mirage. He said, all the luxuries, enjoyments in this worldly life are like this fleeting mirage. They're there, but then from within, they are hollow and they're empty. And that's why you read in the kalam of Moulana Muttaqiyan, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, that when Imam said, Ya dunya, يا دنيا إليك عني أبي تعرستي أم إلي تشوقتي لا حان هينك هيهات غري غيري. That you try to entice me, you try to lure me into, falling for you. No, go ahead and deceive someone else. غري غيري, deceive someone else other than me. You will never be able to deceive me. لا حاجة لي فيك. I don't have any need for you. لا حاجة لي فيك. قد طلقتك ثلاثا لا رجعت فيها. I have divorced you 3 times, after which there is no return. So these are the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen when it comes to this world, that from outside, it's very beautiful. The enjoyment that's there, the luxuries that are there, it's very beautiful. But inside, there's really nothing. It's hollow. And then another comparison that Imam does, he compares this earth, this world, with a serpent, a snake, that how soft it is from the outside when you touch it. I don't know if you ever touched a snake. You touch it from outside, the skin is so soft. But what's inside of the snake, or majority of the snakes? The venom, that if it bites, obviously could be fatal. So from outside it's very layyin, as the word Imam uses, soft. But from inside, fi jawfiha, there's this venom that could be fatal to you. Moving forward with the ayat that I recited, Inna Jahannama kana mirsada lit-taghina ma'aba labithina fiha ahqaba. Maybe I'll get to these 3 ayat. That mirsad means a place of ambush. Where you sit and then you wait for the enemy to come so that you can ambush them. Taghin from Tughyan means excessively sinful. That's why Taghut is the one who calls you to sin excessively. Ma'ab comes from Aub, means a place of meeting or reference, which you do ruju, you refer to this place. Translated as a resort over here. Therefore, the fate or destiny of insan is called Ma'ab, that final destiny, that place that we have built for ourselves is called Ma'ab, because they provided themselves through their actions and now they are being returned to them. So that place that I have built for myself through my actions, what I have done, whatever I have accumulated, I will be sent towards that. Ahqab is the plural for haqab, which means a very long time. Translated here as each day, translated over here as, for ages. The ayat says, to reside therein for ages. That these people, indeed, hell is an ambush, a resort for the rebels, to reside therein for ages. This is the translation of these 3 ayat. They said ahqab means for ages. But in some narrations, the word haqab is equal to 60 or 80 years. And each day is equal to 1,000 years of this world. So just imagine how long that these people will be dwelling into the hellfire, because each haqab is 60 to 80 years, and each day of those 60 to 80 years is another 1,000 years of this world. Hamim means hot water, and ghasaq means yellow-colored water, or the pus which emits from the wound or blood. It's possible that this verse is communicating to us that hell is waiting and ready to ambush you. Everyone, actually it's ready to ambush everyone, regardless of what you have done, good or bad. It's there for everyone. But the pious will be able to cross over it unscathed, and it will only be served to those who are the rebellion, those who are the rebellious. So according to the justice and the adalat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward and punishment is based on the beliefs and the character of insan. So we believe at least that much, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why we make dua toward the end of our speeches or towards the end of our programs, that, oh Allah, deal with us with your mercy. Don't deal with us with your justice. Because if you deal with us with your adalat, then we really don't have any hope. But if you show your grace and mercy to us, then maybe we'll find some, respite, we'll find some way out of it. So therefore, the word jaza'an wifaqa, as the ayah says, that testing it in neither any coolness, nor it talks about a resort for rebels to reside there for ages, a fitting requital for them. That it is jaza'an wifaqa. Jaza'an wifaqa is a fitting requital. That really what they deserve. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not overburden them more than what they deserved. That's how precise, with precision, the adab and the thawab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be. That it is to the point, so precise, that it will be, as the ayat is translated, as a fitting requital. that nothing would be more than that. Therefore, the excess in adhab, as mentioned in the later ayat of this same surah, ayat number 30, it says, فَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ إِلَّا عَذَابًا, we shall increase you in nothing but punishment. So what is this extra adhab? When over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that it is a fitting requital, it is what they deserve. What is this extra adhab that is being mentioned over here? It says the extra adhab is due to disbelief and fleeing the right path. So at one point Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for you. So if something is given to you, then you don't really have any choice to say, well, it did not come to me. So these people, after having accepted the fact and after having believed in something, then they chose a different path. This is where you call them rebel. Because you don't call someone rebel from the very beginning if they haven't accepted anything. That's why a lot of time the discussions are min ba'de ja'akum bayyinat. After that we have revealed clear signs, then you go against it. That's a different story. That's a separate story. This requires extra bit of adab for you. And that's why it says the opposite notion of this is la'in shakartum. On the opposite side, if you were to be grateful, لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. If you are grateful, I will surely enhance you in blessing. But فَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ إِلَّا عَذَابًا. But if you were to flee from the right path and you continue on this disbelief, then again the adhab will increase. So here is a very classic, and inshallah I'll maybe take 5 to 7 minutes, a discussion on being thankful, this gratefulness, shukr, as this ayat is talking about from Surah Ibrahim, that if you are grateful, that how does that resonate to us? That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us by saying, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Shukr elevates the status of mankind. When you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it elevates your status. It takes you above a level. The discussion of tamam and kamal that we had, I think in one of the previous nights, that leap which is a vertical leap, not a horizontal leap. You know, you can continue moving horizontally, but then you just need one vertical leap. That vertical leap is that kamal that you're trying to get to. And if you are thankful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, riwayat mention that you, shukr elevates the status of mankind. Our relationship with Allah is the relationship of thankfulness. That's the only relationship that you can think of. There is a verse in Quran that I recited from Surah Ibrahim, that لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Maybe this verse is translated differently. You may have seen a different translation of it, because you've heard this verse many times. That, you know, if you are thankful, then I will give you more. Maybe you've heard this translation. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are thankful, then I will give you more. I'll make your reward more and more. That's not what it's trying to tell you. لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. That if you are thankful, then I will increase you. It's not saying that, for example, you know, if you give $1,000, for example, and you spend this $1,000, it'll become, you know, $1,500. That if you spend 1,000 in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it'll become 1,500. Although that's what we're trying to pitch to you, that if you spend for the sake of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, Allah will double it, triple it. But more importantly, if you're not after the physical increment of your wealth, you know, what is happening? This elevation of your soul. La azidannakum. What would you rather have? The worldly wealth multiplied multiple times, or your status itself being raised in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So giving have multiple levels. One is, you know, you're giving back as you would, you know, go ahead and have some stocks, and then you know, have some sort of gains, and you have some sort of profit, you gain some money, you make some money. That's something which is here, and then that money is spent. Yeah, that is also promised, that you spend $1 in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He multiplies it 70 times. So you'll definitely get that in the hereafter. But what is also happening is, when you give, la azidannakum, you know, that if you say Alhamdulillah, and will keep increasing every time you say Alhamdulillah, it doesn't say in Quran, I will increase your wealth if you thank me. It says, I will increase you. And that is where, instead of saying la azida, you know, ni'matakum, for example, when you thank, you adopt an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you become godly yourself. without doing any partnership with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without doing any shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, you develop a habit which is a godly habit. And you're elevated and you're exalted. Quran doesn't say, قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْ عِلْمِي. Oh Lord, Prophet didn't say, oh Lord, increase my knowledge. He said, Rabbi zidni ilman. Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. They're two different things. That at one point there could be a person, with the highest of the degrees, multiple PhDs, but yet fighting over, small petty things. Someone like me, if you don't call me Hujjatul Islam, I'll fight over it. Oh, why don't you when you announce my name, why don't you say Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin? You forgot wal Muslimin. Or why did you call me Moulana? You should have called me Allama. Or forget about Allama, these are from the last century. Call me Ayatullah from moving forward. Haven't I proven myself to be Ayatullah? Or, call me other labels that you have that people would like to be called with. No, this is where we see these people are those, they have knowledge. But it's not Rabbi Zidni Ilman. It's not that, they're making this dua that Allah increase me in knowledge. At one point you have knowledge, at one point you are increased with knowledge. There are many people who may not have that same level of degree, but the depth and the wisdom is there in those individuals. It means make me exalted with it. Some people are very knowledgeable, but not exalted at all. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sixth Imam added to it, he says, Shukr ni'mat, when you're thankful toward the bounties toward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best way of thanking is duriyas guna, refraining from the sinning. You refrain from sinning, you have done two things. You refrain from sinning, that's also obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have also thanked Him. I'm saying, in one action, you're actually doing two things. So the best way of thanking is that you spend the favor in the way of Allah. Prophet Musa ﷺ was asked to thank. He showed inability by saying, it's impossible. Every word that I utter for saying thank you, I must thank you again. And it'll be a continuous cycle. There'll be this tasalsul that will come about. It will trigger another thing. Allah sent wahi to him. He said, you're admitting the fact that you can thank me is the biggest way of thanking me. The fact that you're ajiz and you're showing inkisari that I am not able to thank you is the best way anyone could have been thankful to me. We read in Surah Luqman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke and He said, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. 3 times the word shukr has appeared in this ayah. Probably didn't happen anywhere else in Quran. We gave wisdom to Luqman so that he would give thanks to God. Those who give thanks to God do so for their own good. I don't need to elaborate on the words, just pay attention to the meaning. Those who give thanks to God do so for their own good. And those who are grateful should know that God is self-sufficient and praiseworthy. So you should automatically get 2 things out of it. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeking, I'm using the word seeking, is asking for us to be thankful, He is neither in need of this thank, and secondly, this thank is for our own good. And you may have understood this concept, but a lot of time, youngsters, they have difficult time comprehending some of these things. We are grown up in an era when we are muti amr maula, right? That's what we call it. That we are the obedient to the command of Allah. And we're not obedient to the command of our intellect. So even if I don't understand something, I'll still believe in it. But that's how I was brought up. That even if I don't understand something fully, but I'll still stick to it because Shariat has said this is haram or this is halal or this is makruh or this is whatever. That's how the tarbiyat was done, so that I'm always putting the amr of Allah in front of my own intellectual ability. But in this society that we live in, a lot of time people like to question, especially the young ones. They want to question, and sometimes parents have hard time convincing them of some of the rules and the laws, because we don't have those answers which could give contentment to them that yes, this is the logical way of looking at it. So unless you provide a logical answer, which in some cases you may not be able to. For example, what is the logical answer that wearing gold is haram for men but it's halal, it's okay for women. What's the logic? I haven't been able to find. If someone has, please come and inform me. But because it's the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find it in the books of ahadith, we stick to it. We don't show rebellious that no, unless I know the real reason behind it, I'm going to wear this gold. No. We do our research and we refrain from doing it because there's a wisdom behind the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many other things such as that where we don't know the wisdom behind it. The intellect does not reach that place, and therefore our mind is not ready to accept it. And so sometimes some of us, we won't do it. Some of us will refrain from it, from doing it, but at the same time will continue to question. So wisdom is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It cannot be acquired. That's one thing. That's why you have artificial intelligence, but you don't have artificial wisdom. Number two, important favor requires greater appreciation. So the more important the favor of Allah is, the greater the appreciation from it will be. Allah said to the Holy Prophet, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Do what? فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْهَرْ. Pray and give the biggest of the sacrifice, because I'm giving you in abundance. This kawthar is the biggest gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being thankful and showing gratitude is for your own good. Allah says, وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. Whoever is grateful, they're grateful for their own sake. It does not increase one bit in what I want. So spending the ni'mat wrongfully is kufran ni'mat. لَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ بَدَّلُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ كُفْرًا. When you do kufran ni'mat, when you don't spend the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, then you have actually converted this gift into a kufran ni'mat, which is the opposite of receiving the ni'mat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat bhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There have time hai. I wanted to tie this discussion and conclude it so that, I think namaz is about 8:29, 8:27 today? 8:30? Okay, so I got about 10 minutes. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So why does he make it incumbent upon us to thank him when he doesn't need our thanks? I'll promise I'll be done inshallah in a minute and a half. Answer is that this is a method of training us. This is the tarbiyat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine yourself in place of Allah, hypothetically for one minute, that you are in his place and you have to give, because that's the attribute of Allah that he gives. So now you understand that when you give, you are adopting the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of giving. That's his nature of giving. Now imagine that you're a father and you give your children abundantly, and you feel this self-satisfaction when you have provided for them whatever it is that they needed. And in fact, you've gone beyond and you've provided more than enough. But at the same time, you don't want them to squander the favors that you have given to them, which might be from your hard-earned money. So while you're giving abundantly to your children, but at the same time, you want to keep reminding them, then don't misuse this. Don't squander this. Don't ruin this. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gives us, when he bestows his favors upon us, his demand is similar, that don't go ahead and ruin this favor that I have given to you. Don't convert this ni'mat into kufr, because the moment you spend it in something other than the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have converted this ni'mat into kufr. Allah doesn't need self-satisfaction. He just needs excuse to bestow favors upon us after another. He doesn't need to, punish us. He doesn't like to punish us. Rather, he just needs excuse after excuse to go ahead and bestow his favors onto us. And that's why it says in Surah Nisa 147, one of the most beautiful ayat in the entire chapter, it says, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ شَاكِرًا عَلِيمًا. Why should Allah punish you? Look at the beauty in the ayat. Why should Allah punish you if you give thanks and be faithful? And Allah is appreciative of all that you do. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he gives us the ability and tawfiq to be able to be thankful toward all the ni'mat that he has bestowed upon us, and that we use his ni'mat in the way that he wants us to use. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.